Hello and welcome to the big story here on the BDTV Breakfast Show. This is where we get to discuss key issues shaping our nation and our economy. My name is Elizabeth Musa, and today we will be focusing on foreign politics. We'll be exploring the possibility of President Donald Trump running for a third term in office. Trump has indicated interest in a possible third term in office as the United States president is a Republican president currently serving a second term in office, having done his first term from 2016 to 2021 before losing the second term bid to former President Joe Biden. Trump re-entered the race in 2024 and beat Kamala Harris, the Democratic candidate, to emerge as the president. When asked in a recent interview with the NBC about the possibility of seeking a third term in the White House, Trump admitted to it, saying, "There are methods which you could do it." Well, to help us understand this even better, we're being joined by global affairs analyst, Mr. Collins Nweke. Good morning and welcome to the show, Mr. Collins, Mr. Nweke.
Very good morning to you, Elizabeth. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. Let me start by asking you this question. America is touted as the bastion of democracy and freedom globally. Do you think this idea of a third term fits the description for America?
Well, it's the democracy, Elizabeth, and what Donald Trump has done is express his willingness for tenure elongation. That's a very popular term in Nigeria. I mean, during the presidency of Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, there were very strong rumors about, his ambition to go for a third term. So, I mean, what is playing out in the U.S. now is nothing different from what, President Olusegun Obasanjo was alleged to have, attempted to do at the time. Now, across Africa, that is considered, an emerging or developing economy, we have, a whole lot of cases of individuals, trying to, stay put in office. Some have stayed put in office, elongating their tenure beyond the constitutionally allowed one. Now, is there anything, wrong with that? No, not necessarily, as long as it is done democratically. But there are some of us who also say that any president who achieves, a constitutional change that elongates the tenure of the presidency, for instance, from 2 terms to 3 or 4 or 5 terms, that's fine as long as it's done, in accordance with the constitution of that country. But the president that masterminded such a constitutional change ethically should not be a beneficiary of such change, because doing so means that, essentially, the person did it for himself. And so, it cannot be different for, Donald Trump. But of course, there are very, very huge hurdles to cross. So, ambition, yes, but how realistic and realizable that ambition is for a third term, for Donald Trump, remains wait and see. But, it's an uphill task.
Well, I like when you said it's an uphill task. But, let's talk about what the Constitution says. You've been analyzing global affairs for a while now. What does the United States Constitution say about a third term?
The United States Constitution is very clear about, the tenure of a presidency. So, the 22nd Amendment actually was ratified, I believe, in 1951, made it very clear that no person shall be elected to the office of the president more than twice. Now, in the case of Donald Trump, he is doing his second term. I mean, there was, a break here, like you pointed out, when he lost to Joe Biden, and then, beat Kamala Harris to now run for the, second term. Now, there have been not quite a precedent, but there has been something close to this sort of attempt in the past, where Franklin Roosevelt was elected for 4 terms. You know, he served from 1933 up until about 1945, you know, when he died. And so it was that situation that, actually gave rise to that 22nd Amendment to prevent further, future presidents of the United States for serving for more than, 2 terms. So that's exactly what the Constitution says. But it doesn't stop there. It also says that for that to happen, 2/3 of the lower house, which is the House of Representatives, and the upper house, which is the Senate, would have to actually ratify, the amendment. Not only that, I think about 38 out of the 50 states of the United States of America would also have, that is 2/3, would also have to, ratify it. So you ask yourself, is it going to be possible for President Trump to get all of this, done to enable him to run for a 3rd term? So that's the constitutional hurdle that he would have to cross.
And speaking of constitutional hurdle, do you actually see the American Parliament agreeing to amend the Constitution to allow for this in any case?
It looks unlikely. In fact, very, very unlikely, if not impossible. The reason I say so is that, one could look around and say, well, he has the Republicans under his grip, and nobody ever dare to challenge him. But let's not forget that just yesterday here, there was a vote in respect to the tariff hike for Canada, where we saw, for the first time in a very long time, 4 Republicans actually voting against, the tariff, and so they lost that vote, in the House. Now, what that means is that there are still out there Republicans, and I'm focusing on Republicans' party for a start. There are Republicans out there who are ready to break with Donald Trump. There are not many of them, but there are a few who are ready to break with him when it comes to protecting the democratic institutions of the United States. So, on the part of his party, for a start, he's not going to get everyone. Talk less of, independents and Democrats. So, achieving the 2/3 majority needed for the Constitution, the 22nd Amendment to be, overwritten, that's a hurdle. And then you have not even talked about the 38 out of the 50 states that would have to ratify it. So I do not see any pathway to achieving, a constitutional amendment that will allow a 3rd term for Donald Trump.
And before I let you go, Mr. Inweke, what do you think that an aspiration for a 3rd term, what do you think it does for the world's democracy? How do you think the world will see this?
Well, I do think that it emboldens, dictators in other parts of the world, Africa and other developing economy, who will very readily cite Donald Trump and say, well, you see, this tenure elongation constitutional amendment to allow us, stay put in power, that is not something typical to, Africa. After all, the biggest democracy in the world, which is United States, we see it playing out. So yes, it will embolden, rogue politicians elsewhere in the world to justify, their attempts to sit tight in power. And that's not a good thing for democracy.
We've seen sit-tight presidents in Africa over the years, and what do you think of cases where we see presidents sitting tight to power in African countries? What do you make of them?
Well, it's not a good thing. I hear people say, well, Africa has to develop its own brand of democracy, and people question elections, whether it is the best thing for Africa. Complete nonsense. I mean, democracy, even with all its flaws, it's not perfect, has been proven to be the best form of, choosing leaders, the best form of government of the people, by the people, for the people. Now, you want to go to autocracy, or you want to, maintain, monarchical, forms of government. Yes, there are places where that happens. As well, take England, for instance. It thrives in a democracy where, they have the king or the queen, being the head of state, and then you have a prime minister that is head of government. And in Belgium here, where I am, it is exactly the same thing. So you have that kind of, mixture of, systems, but democracy remains democracy, and election, remains election. And so it cannot be that, let me pause here, Elizabeth, and make one point. There are countries where there are no term limitations. Germany, for instance, nothing in their constitution says that you cannot run for a third, a fourth, or fifth term. We remember Helmut Kohl, who served, for such a very long time. We remember also, England, where you had Margaret Thatcher, served for a very, very long time. So all those things are there, but it has to be a constitutional matter, and those who mastermind, such constitutional change should not be beneficiaries of it. Otherwise, it will mean that it was done in a rogue manner for themselves, for their own benefit.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Collins Nweke, for your rich analysis here on the big story today. We'll have to leave it here today. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. Have a good weekend.